very excited to introduce our guest for today. Her name is Jeanie Els, and she is a mommy of a beautiful boy, Joshua. She gave birth a year ago, and more than that, she's a mother. She's a wife to Louis Els. She's also a trained kinesiologist and a physiotherapist, and she's done her Stott Pilates instructor course. So she's saying life has its own way of unfolding, and now I spend my time working online and looking after my 1-year-old son Joshua. She's South African, we grew up in Canada. She's a daughter of a doctor. She doesn't shy away to ask and tell about the real stuff because that's how she grew up. And we're going to get real with you today. So let's welcome Jeanie Els. She's right here with me.
Hello guys.
Hey Jeanie, can you come a bit closer?
Yes.
There we go. Jeanie, thank you for being here with me. I was looking for someone to come into the show, and you were so eager. You actually suggested, like, listen, I'll ask you, like, if there's anything you would love us to address, what would it be? And the first thing you said?
Right away, postnatal, postpartum.
Postnatal, postpartum care, yeah. So I do think we often like to talk about all these birth stories and so forth, but everything once a baby's out, there's so many things that you never thought of or
didn't know about, definitely.
Didn't know about. Yeah,
Surprise.
How did that go for you? Yeah.
I guess the first question am I asking you questions or am I telling you about my experience?
You can tell you a little bit how it go for you the first just having baby in your arms, and then what happened then?
It was beautiful and it was blissful, but it was very, very scary at the same time. One of my friends actually told me, and I think it was probably the most accurate thing I heard, is like, becoming a mom and motherhood is one of the steepest learning curves that you'll ever encounter in life. And it's not just you that's learning, it's your baby that's learning too. And you have to be gracious to yourself and to your baby.
That's so true.
That was probably one of the biggest things I realized right after birth. And then obviously I had a very, I would say crazy, but I think everyone would say their birth story was crazy. But I gave birth to Joshua on the first day of COVID lockdown, level 5, level 1, level 5, the harsh one. So everything was a bit crazy and nobody knew what was going on. So I was kind of sent home very quickly. I was in hospital until 8 o'clock the next morning. I gave birth at 12 o'clock and I was like, bye-bye. Having not seen a nurse, I don't think I saw a nurse once. I saw my doctor quickly for like 5 minutes. I saw the pediatrician for 5 minutes, and then Louis came to fetch me and I was going home. So it was a bit scary. I didn't know what was happening. I was like, can I just go right into it?
It was definitely a steep learning curve.
It was a steep learning curve, yes, definitely.
No, you go right into it.
I guess, I mean, you're walking out the hospital, you've got a new baby, they're super tiny, and you're like, how do I put this kid in a car seat? How do I bath this kid was like one of the first questions. And then also for myself, I don't know how real I should get, but like things down there were just not the same.
No, we're getting very real here. We promised.
I guess, I don't know.
Wow. So you got home quite quickly, and then you had to just figure it all out.
So I think usually what they do in hospitals is they give you sort of like a rundown on what's going to happen, breastfeeding, how it's going to work, what to expect. I'm sure they tell you about the bleeding postpartum and how to, take care of yourself and all that stuff. But I sort of just was like, I just need to get home because I don't want to stay in the hospital until Monday afternoon without anybody. Nobody was allowed to come and visit me. So I was going home extra unaware of what I'm about to get into.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Your focus was to get out of this hospital, not necessarily...
Because it was like a ghost town. There was nobody there. And I was like, I'd rather just be home. I'll call Margreet if I need help. Which I did. But
Yeah.
It was interesting.
She's one brave woman. So Jeanie, I think just before we jump into, you've collected quite a lot of questions from mummies on like, hey, these are the questions you want to ask the midwife now, okay?
Yes.
With knowing what you know now. Before we go there, maybe you want to tell a little bit, how did you go about preparing yourself for parenthood, for motherhood?
Okay, yeah, sure. I tried really, really hard to read a book. because that's what they do on the movies, and that's what they tell you, like, oh, read this book. And I had a lot of people give me books or like recommend books, but personally for myself, I found that the books were very, I don't know how to say this other way, but they were very clinical. So it was very like, you have to do this, this, and this, and if you don't do this, this, and this, you're a bad mom, or you're not getting it. And then I also found that some of the books were quite negative. I know giving birth, like we were saying, like your body does go through a trauma. It is difficult, like I said, the learning curve is steep. So there's a lot of challenges waiting, but I found that a lot of the books I was reading was like too negative for me, like, you're gonna suffer, it's gonna suck, and I just was thinking to myself, like, I don't want to start my journey that way. I want to keep it positive. And this is all just my opinion, to each their own. So instead of reading any books, I kind of put them to the side. I did read a few things, like, you know, here and there I'd like research something, but I found that talking to people was my best way of learning. So I tried to seek out, and we're so great, I mean, we're so lucky in this community. I know a lot of moms that are either like, you know, different levels of moms. So I tried to find people that I knew and that I trusted and that I've have a friendship already with, and I just asked a million questions. Like, I try to make sure that I was sampling enough moms, like C-section moms, emergency C-section moms, natural birth moms, you know, just trying to get a very well-rounded idea of what to expect. And I'm also very blessed. I have 2 sister-in-laws that have had children, so I asked them like 6,000 questions. And then I'm also very blessed because my sister and I actually were 5 days apart due date-wise. So she actually gave birth to Grayson, her son, 2 weeks before I gave birth to Joshua. But Amazing. She had a completely different story. So she had to get a emergency C-section, and then I asked her 1,000 questions. It's like, did you do this? What happened now? What's going on? Did this happen? Did that happen? So yeah, I found that asking questions and talking to people was my best way to prepare myself.
Well, Genie, that is definitely a good approach, I would say. But then how if you don't know what questions to ask? If, like, suppose there's these mums, they're pregnant for the first time, they've never been exposed to babies. You might feel like, hey, that's me. I don't have babies in my family yet. Haven't been drawn to babies specifically. For these mommies, they're just natural mommies. They've been loving kids their whole life. They've been drawn to it. But you could have been that person that's never been there. You don't even know what questions to ask.
No, that's very, very, very true. And that's why I think this talk is so amazing, because you don't know what you don't know, you know?
So let's go there.
All right. Shall we just pop right into like one of the biggest questions? So I was talking to a few of my mommy friends and mommy to be friends, and one of the first and one of the like most recurring question was the postpartum bleeding. First of all, I didn't know that was a thing until I knew that was a thing. And then one of like part of that question is like, how long are you bleeding for? What's like the normal amount of time to bleed? And then also why? Why is this happening to me? Okay. I just had a baby. Does this need to happen again? But yeah.
Okay, so like one of the I'm answering your question, this question now. Okay. So I should know, I suppose. Hey. Well, I love it that you actually are saying like, why do we bleed? So for me, it's like a no-brainer because I know the physiology. You have to remember that you've got this amazing placenta that is almost part and parcel of your womb, and then when baby's out, that placenta needs to be expelled.
Yes.
Right. So the placenta is part of the baby products that needs to get out of your body. If it stays in, we're in for lots of problems. We can talk about that a bit later. But the placenta needs to come out. But you can imagine that the placenta's been attached to the womb, and there's a lot of blood veins that goes in and out of there. So that's once the placenta come loose, and if the uterus doesn't contract, and even if it contracts, it's a massive open wound, basically, because it's like blood veins that has just gone in, and
that's
it's
news to me.
Yeah, that's where all the feeding of the babies happen through from you. That's blood veins, blood that goes through there, and so if you can just imagine if that gets loose, then it's the inside of your womb is literally bleeding.
Yeah.
Right. So and then we all know that after birth, your uterus needs to contract. And that is super important, and because as it contracts, it will close all these blood veins, and it will help it to stop bleeding. Okay. But that's a process, obviously. Yeah. But that's why we always try to feel carefully if your uterus is well contracted. And it's also the importance of getting baby straight away on the breast, because if baby sucks, then the same hormone gets expelled, which is the oxytocin, that gives you contractions. So that even helps the womb to contract even more. So you might sometimes feel while you're breastfeeding that it's painful and that you're bleeding a bit more. So that is all because it's hormonal related oxytocin that keeps the womb contracting, trying it to heal. So once a baby's out at first, you can bleed quite a lot. Have you noticed that? Yeah.
Trying to have a shower after you just gave birth was interesting.
Yeah, so that's maybe something you didn't think of.
Definitely did not think about having to think about that.
All the blood that comes with it. Yeah. So I always say in my antenatal classes, like, hey, remember, you're making 1.5 liters extra blood when you're pregnant.
Hectic.
1.5 liters. So it's okay to lose a little bit of blood afterwards because you've got a lot of extra. You'll be fine. So don't get a fright, but it will be bloody. Let's face it, it's going to be bloody. Birth in itself is not so bloody. Hey, like some people think, birth, whatever.
I don't remember.
But the afterbirth is bloody because it has come loose. There's a wound and there's blood coming out. So you can initially bleed quite a bit, and then it sort of stops, and then when you stand up and go to the loo or the shower, which is so possible when you've had a natural birth, you can straight after an hour or so, when you've done the first hour skin to skin, get up and get into the shower. But then you can have quite a lot of blood. So I always tell my mummies, don't get a fright. There might be quite big clots that come out initially, and then that is totally okay. So the first shower, first going to the toilet, or even when you're in bed, quite a lot of bleeding is fine. Your body's just getting rid of everything, and but after that it should start normalizing, more like a heavy period. Okay. If that makes sense.
Good, yeah, that makes sense.
Did you experience that?
Yes, and but I had a different story. But I found that it was quite similar to what you were saying, and then some days it was very light, and then some days it would get very heavy again. I don't know if that's normal, but that was my journey. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So originally after birth it can be quite a lot, and then it settles. With cesarean section mummies it can be a bit less intense initially, because in theatre they've already taken a lot of blood out and scraped it and so forth. But it's for all mummies, you will definitely bleed, and that's why you want to have those big nice pads. Have them ready. Those like ugly pads.
Those monstrosities.
The monstrous pads. So there is something like maternity pads for a reason, because you're gonna need them.
And stock up and put those in your hospital bags, my friends.
You need them. Yeah, no panty liners.
No. The other question was, what's normal to be, like, how long?
Oh yeah. How long can we bleed? Right, I would say heavy period kind of the first few days, and it differs per woman, but then after a week it should definitely have lessened big time. And you will notice that it changes in color. So where it originally is like really red blood, then it will go more brownish, like almost like an old wound, like that brownish, and it will change in color. But you shouldn't see red blood for more than a week. Unlike, we can talk about your experience.
Because that would make sense now that you say that, because I was seeing bright red for a few weeks. So,
you can share.
So because of COVID, also a side story, we didn't have our 6-week checkups, but around 5 to 6 weeks, I was talking to my sister and I was like, hey, when did you stop bleeding? And she said, about 6 weeks. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm around there, but I'm experiencing a lot of pelvic pain. So sometimes when I would stand up, it really felt like my whole uterus and my whole pelvis was just, and I couldn't stand some days, and I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk with Joshua in my hands. And then about 7 weeks, or no, it was 9 weeks, something was wrong. I phoned my doctor and I said, listen, I know you're not doing 6-week checkups, but something is wrong. I'm still bleeding and I'm having a lot of pain. So maybe can I come in? And she's like, yeah, sure, come on in. And then I ended up going in, and she did a scan, an ultrasound. She first did one on my belly, and then she couldn't see anything, so she did an internal one, and she actually found that there was little pieces of my placenta still stuck in my womb, and that my body was trying to obviously
get rid of that.
And that's why we were squeezing, not we. my pelvis was squeezing.
Together.
And it was like hectic, so I actually ended up having to go for a scrape.
Wow.
So
Yeah, so that was really unfortunate.
not fun.
No. So I think if you realize that something is like painful or out of the norm, then definitely, but that's again, you don't know what you don't know. You didn't know, so now you know. That's the aim.
That's not normal.
So after birth, we always really make sure that everything has come out, and we check the placenta if there's no little pieces left behind, because then what happens is your womb can't contract completely, it keeps bleeding, so that wound keeps going, you know what I mean? So because there's something in the way, so it will keep, and then also it can even affect your breastfeeding and so forth, because there's still a little bit of birthing hormones there because of the placenta. It's amazing how it works. And then it inhibits a bit of the breastfeeding hormones. And did you experience something like that too?
I remember the second day I was home, I phoned Margreet and I was like, help me. Because Joshua was having difficulty latching, it was difficulty, like I think we ended up having to like express out some of the, I think it was still colostrum back then, and then put it into like a syringe and or I don't know, used a teaspoon, but it was quite difficult. Like the first week or two were quite a struggle for me.
And because of COVID, she got quiet on me too. She suffered on her own, so I didn't know about this bleeding story.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, you were brave woman. You persevered, but it wasn't easy for you. Hey?
No, it was quite difficult.
So knowing what you know now, what other questions would you want to ask?
Well, I would definitely have asked if this is normal, like the bleeding, the pain. And I think now that I look back and having spoken to you and some other, like my doctor and blah, 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 I think it also really made my baby blues like hectic. Because like there were some night or mornings I'd wake up like, Jesus, just take the wheel because I can't not do this anymore. Wow. And then after I actually had my scrape, I explained it to someone else on the weekend. It felt like my brain just got like cleared.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was going on, but it was So I would definitely ask. I would have asked sooner. You know, like when I was starting to get pain, because my sister didn't have any pain, Jana didn't have any pain. So
yes. Yeah.
And I think obviously maybe it was COVID related, but I just was a bit scared of going back to the hospital and being a nuisance, or you know, like suffer in silence. Not a good idea.
Yeah, so that is a legit thing. Like, how do you know when it's normal, when it's not normal? And then let's just go there a little bit. Like at Sister Lillian Center, we really emphasize the intuitive and instinctive approach. So there's a mommy in all of us hidden, and that comes away. And you need to learn to trust your mother instinct. Yes. Because you're going to figure it out, and you're going to talk about that also, and you're going to learn to read your baby. Yes. Your baby is going to be your best book. And once you learn that, I mean, you said in the beginning, also baby needs to learn a lot. So there's a two-way learning happening, and it's a team effort. Yes. So all that bonding in those early days are super important to figure out your baby, and that's what I remember. I kept encouraging you. It's like, you're going to figure it out. So then if you figure it out, then also, and if you learn to trust that motherly instinct, then you will also learn to trust your motherly instinct when something's not right. You witness with that? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And to learn to act upon that. Yeah. You know? To listen,
definitely. You just, I don't know, you just know.
You just know.
Hey, something in you just clicks and you're like,
something is wrong, and then you ask a question, so go ask help or whatever, and then it gets confirmed. Yes.
Yeah, I would tell myself not to, like, because I have this, I mean, I think everyone does sometimes. You're like, oh, I don't want to be a pain, or like, oh, but Margreet's busy, or my doctor doesn't want to see people, blah blah blah. But just do it. Yeah.
Support is important those early days. Yeah. It can be very overwhelming, and for some people it's more a breathe, and it also really matters how your birth experience has been. So there's so many factors that can influence your postnatal period. But there are certain things that are pretty standard, right? Yep. So do you have some more questions for me?
I do actually. I thought of a couple more now that we were sitting here that I didn't pre-talk to you about. But going to the bathroom after giving birth, and how for me, I know, I just from talking to some other moms, like they were saying how difficult or how painful it was to go number 2. I think that was mostly from C-section, from the people that I talked to, but it could be natural birth as well. Maybe if you tore, I was very fortunate I didn't. I didn't tear. But I remember feeling you have to like relearn pressure. It was difficult. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But just why it's so sore and why it's such a challenge to go to the bathroom for I think the first 2 times after.
And how did you get it right?
I don't know. I just did it. I don't know. I was a little bit nervous because honestly, it feels like nothing feels normal down there. Like it feels like you don't. It's almost like you have to relearn not the reflex. I don't know. It was just strange.
Reflexes, basically.
And how to what's knyp?
Contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Contract. Yeah. It's just so different. Like you just don't know. I don't have pain, so I don't know if maybe you can speak to that and why it's sore. But maybe.
I mean, obviously, it's not rocket science. If a baby's come through there, things has been stretched and has been used down there, and it's going to take some adjustment to get back to normal, and it really does.
It does.
So that first time, it can be a bit burny. There can be even a lot of, even if you haven't been tearing, if you're lucky and didn't have a cut or a tear, there will still most likely be a lot of little small micro tears that don't need stitches, but that can be a bit, it can burn. If you urinate, it can burn down there, and then obviously also when you want number 2, you need a poo, you might be scared because you think like, oops, especially if you have stitches, like, oops, will it stay closed there? Am I not going to tear open or something like that?
Definitely.
But I'm going to tell you that you don't have to be scared of that, and it's way worse to hold it up and to get constipated. So just go for that number 2. When you've had a Caesar, then obviously your from operation always your gut is sort of put to rest for a while, so it takes some time for it to get its flow back. You can call it the flow, peristalsis we call it, but so that takes some time, so it may take a bit longer for you to get your number 2 going. And for a natural birth, most of the time your intestines have been emptied before you give birth. You go into labor,
it just happens.
So it takes some time, so it's amazing how your body does that too, right? But those are things you also didn't think of, but don't be scared, just go. And what you can do is maybe have a little wee in the shower.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I should have thought of that.
With some water, you're rinsing it, and it's like...
so that would be my other question, but also just not a warning, but I would like to let people know that you are swollen down there.
Yes.
I was like, what is happening? But that's normal, right?
What's like, between my legs?
Yes. And I had a natural birth, and I was just, what? It's so, just so you know, it's normal.
Yes.
To be quite swollen.
Yes, absolutely.
Like I didn't look, but I didn't recognize myself.
Sure, good point. Yeah, so that's something you can imagine with the pressure. There's so much circulation and so much happens to get that baby out to stretch open, and lubrication and so forth. It's incredible what your body does, but it might be a bit swollen. But
just not freak out, because I was like, oh my gosh, is something wrong?
Yeah.
But no,
good,
because it went to the swelling reduced obviously over a couple of, I don't even know how long it took, can't remember.
Yeah.
And then also the other question that I got is, you maybe don't know this, but now you'll know this, is like, they always say after natural birth you need to have salt baths. So my question when someone told me is like, why?
What's up with the
salt
salt
baths? Why would I need to bath in salt and have and then also getting across that mental barrier, like you're having a bath but you're also sometimes still bleeding, but the reason why you have a bath is... Yeah, you obviously are healing down there, so you don't want it to start getting infectious. Yes.
So salt is a sterilizing thing. So a little bit of salt in your water, or just a spraying bottle. When you go to the loo, you just spray with a bit of you can do an empty Energite bottle even.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
and put some those pink salt or whatever, or Epsom salt, and you just squish it in. It's relieving, but it also keeps it nice and clean.
Yes.
That's all you want. You just want it. Obviously, you can imagine if there's a little wound and it's close to your rectum, and our rectum is full of microorganisms. Let's be real. If that gets contaminated, that's also not fun. And you just want it to stay clean for optimal healing. But then the other thing I need to say is that how quickly it heals down there. Yeah. Because it's so rich in circulation, blood circulation, it almost heals quicker than just on the skin, a wound. It really heals very quick. So I would say salt baths. How long did you do that?
I think I did it until my last stitch was gone.
Ah, that's also a good thing to talk about.
Stitches.
Because
question.
You said you didn't tear.
I didn't tear, but I don't know what she stitched. I didn't ask.
Okay.
But I had 2
All right.
stitches.
Yes.
But it was like on the was it on the outside? I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But like I remember I had 2 stitches, and then I kept bathing, and then I sprayed around like long. Probably until after my scrape.
Because you were
spraying.
bleeding.
Yeah.
That's maybe because you did that.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Okay. So with stitches,
But tearing is a good question, because some people don't know that you can tear.
Yeah. So let's just talk a little bit about that then. So there's this different scenarios. You either stay intact. That means that you don't need any stitches, or you have a little tear, or you have a cut, and the cut is also called episiotomy. Now, episiotomy is a medical intervention that we only use if it's really necessary, which is hardly ever necessary, but it's maybe if you've needed a vacuum, some help with the baby, if it's a vacuum, you need to make more space or whatsoever. But in most cases, the head gently, if you allow birth to be gentle and natural, gently stretches everything open, and there's lots of circulation, so it allows your skin and everything to gently stretch. But often, especially once the pressure is full on, the head's coming out and you just like can't keep it up anymore. That's why we try to like breathe. Don't push now, breathe. Just try to breathe this baby out. But you can just imagine if it goes like full force, the skin is delicate and it can tear a little bit.
Yes.
Well, it sounds really terrible. I know every woman that's the most scariest thought before you've given birth. Like, what if I tear down there? And I'm sure for a partner as well. But it's really the least to worry about, because you don't even feel it, because all the nerve endings that register pain, they have been taken up. They're up here somewhere, not even in your skin anymore because of the stretching. So your body don't register it at the time as pain. So you're not aware of it happening. The only thing when it really gets annoying is when we need to do the stitches, because then it's like, don't touch me there anymore, and just stay out of my way. And I don't love doing those stitches, but it's important. So we just need to make sure to see where, and sometimes it's just to one stitch maybe, to support your anatomy there, or and if you need more stitches, most of the time we do stitches on the inside to put it all together, and then on the outside just on the skin with a thinner thing. And all those stitching material, they dissolve by themselves.
That's a good question,
because that's something you didn't know.
I was like, is this gonna go away?
No, it's there forever. No,
it's just there permanently.
No, luckily these days we've got stitches that dissolve.
Praise the Lord.
And that normally takes, I would say, 10 days.
See, that's probably why I had the question, because I think it was longer than that.
Okay.
But I don't know why.
Some women even earlier, 7 days, up till 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it depends also on the thickness of the material, you can imagine. So if you have had internal stitches done, they normally use a thicker thread to give more support, whereas on the skin, it's just to put it nice together. It's a nice thin thread. So it depends on the thickness of the thread. And then if you've had a cut, you might find that I've used quite a lot of stitching material there. And that a cut can actually really have nasty complications, because your body also don't like all that foreign material there. So it sometimes resists a little bit all that. So then it's sometimes good after a week to take some stitches out. But if you had a cut, really get someone to check up on it regularly, just to see if it heals properly. It's a bit more tricky than a tear. So a tear heals much more naturally. It falls back to how it naturally was, where a cut is normally cut to the side, and you cut through more layers, so that can be quite a nasty healing. So that's good to know. And then I've also, what I advise my women to do is after a week or no, let me first say this is a thing, a tip here from experience. So oftentimes you hear from the first 2 or 3 days, say like, no, my stitches are fine, it's all good, and then all of a sudden day 4 or 5 hits, and then they all of a sudden complain about these stitches. I've noticed that. So what my theory is, that by then it's like the wound is really healing, and it's almost like when you have a little crust forming.
Yeah.
Then also your normal wounds become a bit more sore when it gets a bit hard.
Yes.
So that's the same that happens with the episiotomy or the tear healing. So it gets a bit harder and even a bit more painful. But I just encourage them. You're almost through it now. It's one day and then it's basically healed. So be aware of that day 4, day 5, and it normally is together with the baby blues and hormones changing, and it's a horrible day. I love to check up on my moms on day 4, 5. It's quite essential. Yeah.
I remember.
You remember?
Yeah, you came to visit me.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. I don't remember.
Well, let's talk about the hormones, because that's a very real thing. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was talking to a lot of my friends as well, that was one of the big things. It's like just managing expectations around your hormones, your moods, and your baby's moods, and just kind of knowing that it's normal. It's okay. I remember my sister-in-law, she was saying that I think it was on day 4 or 5, her mom had just left after not visiting her. And she said all of a sudden she just starts crying, and she's like, I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm crying.
Yeah.
And it's real, and it's tough. It's challenging, because you feel like you're falling apart, and you're like supposed to care for this baby who might also be falling apart or just crying. Who knows?
Yeah.
So that was definitely one of the
questions and the things. Yeah, so normally it is when you've given natural birth, like I'm so passionate about natural birth because I've observed how incredible it is. So your birthing hormones, once you push that baby out, before you push the baby out, it's all oxytocin, the love hormone. But then when you need to get ready to push the baby out, it's like you're waking up and you get full of adrenaline. Yeah.
Ready.
So the adrenaline just helps you to get that baby out, and then once the baby's out, you literally feel like you are on top of the world. Yeah. You just like nothing. You can take on anything. It just gives you that mama power, you know. It's like, if I can do this, I can do anything. You're really on a high, and all you want to do is show the entire world your baby. You just want to look, my baby, look what I've done, and you're on such a high. You don't need to sleep. You really have got all those hormones helping you to be with your baby, attend to your baby. You're really wide awake. Like I'm always amazed by how awake those postpartum mummies are. And then as the time carries on,
days go by.
I was like, Mommy, you need to rest now. And then the hormones start changing too. So the adrenaline wears off, and sleep deprivation. You get lack of sleep. Your hormones are changing. You are actually tired from all the things you've been through. So that can be a reality check. Yes. And then you also can feel extremely overwhelmed with all the changes, and all of a sudden you realize, like, this is my new reality, and you feel really stuck in that. It's like, am I ever going to get my life back? Like, is this me now? Because
who am I?
Yeah, what, you know, and it's all these mixed emotions, and you need to feel happy, but actually feel very overwhelmed, and you all of a sudden feel insecure and all those things.
Why are you not on top of the world anymore? What's wrong with you?
So it's a combination of hormonal changes, tiredness, overwhelmingness, and so forth. Yeah. And that normally hits a deep at day 4, day 5. We call it a baby blues. So be aware, first time mummies, be ready for those days. You can have a bit of a rescue remedy, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But
it's okay.
It's fine. You can, and you must cry.
Yeah.
It's good.
Good.
Healing
Very
tears.
good.
Healing tears.
Get it out.
Get it out. Yeah. Exactly. I think, Jeanie, what another thing that I'm very passionate about trying to get across to the new mommies is to have the right expectations. So
yes,
because
definitely.
Yeah, you don't know what you know, but don't know. But I want to tell you that your life is changing radically. And don't try to get back into your normal life as soon as possible, because you're going to just be in for a disappointment. Yeah, definitely. So if you want to have a baby, be ready to have a baby, not just have a baby and carry on with whatever you're doing. Yeah. It's a modern day woman problem. We just have all these lives that we've thought of, and then all of a sudden the baby needs to fit in there, and everyone on Instagram make it look so amazing and doable, and you've got your beautiful baby crib, and you put your baby in there, and off you go, do whatever you want to do. But the reality is not like that. What's your experience?
Babies are always there, and it's like you're allowed to have time for yourself. Definitely, self-care is important, but I think what Margreet is saying is so important to have that mind shift. And it's not a bad thing. It's an amazing and it's a privilege to have that thing. But yeah, like you're saying, the baby, you're not just having the baby, you're having the baby and you're keeping the baby.
Yeah,
and the baby will be there for the next 18 to 21 years hung off when we go on the way.
And don't worry, when they're teenagers, I don't want you anymore. So rather enjoy it when I really want you. Yeah.
But I mean, for me, Joshua, I don't know if this, I'll just quickly tell a story. I always see all these Instagram mommies where they put their babies down and they like sleep for 5 hours. No, that wasn't my child. My child was like 20 minutes on the co-sleeper, and then 45 to an hour I like either held skin to skin or in my carrier, or so I was constantly kangarooing the baby.
Yeah, and that is not because it was Joshua, it's actually normal for all babies. Like
yes.
Babies, you must imagine it's been 9 months growing from a few cells, so that to a full baby inside your body. So that baby is really one with you. And then with birth, the separation starts, obviously, but that baby still really feel one unit with you. We call it the mom and baby diet. So there's something about non-separation for mom and baby, which is extremely important. And if we could just all get that right again. And there's certain tribes in the world, in South America, that just think we Westerners are so cruel because we separate mom and baby, but they've understood they should stay together.
Yeah,
the baby still
so
feels
cool.
one with mommy, so that's why they feel calm when they are here. Kangaroo medical, skin to skin. What it does, it stabilizes everything. It stabilizes the blood sugar, so you don't have to worry about all those top-ups if you keep baby here, even for Caesar babies. Skin to skin on you, it makes them calm, it hears your heartbeat. It is so important. There's neurological development happening, all of that. So you are going to have to get used to a baby stuck to you, not only 9 months inside of you, but also 9 months maybe on top of you. And that is just what it is to be a mother. And that's, for every child's going to look a bit different, but I just want you to have the right expectations, because then you're in for a better ride.
Yeah, definitely.
And prepare better, I say.
Yeah, and having your expectations appropriate.
Yes, appropriate. Yeah. So it's appropriate expectations. Then being well informed.
Yes.
That
as
helps.
Much as you can.
As much as you can. And have the right support. And you said support is a big deal for you.
Yeah, a huge deal. And then you asked me a question like what I would tell parents.
Yes.
And support is one of those, especially for the moms. I mean, the dads are there as well for support, but it's important that you find or have people that can support you, but also to accept that. Because sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, is like someone's offering, like my mother-in-law or my sister-in-law, because that's who lives near me. They'll ask, oh, can I take Joshua or go have a nap? And I'll be like, no, I have to do it myself. And just, that's not necessary always.
Yeah.
I mean, like we were saying, like, yes, separation and all that, keeping them close to you, but it's also important.
Accepting help.
Accepting help.
Yeah.
When you
because it doesn't matter who it is. Like, it can be a grandmother that can also do skin to skin and settle that baby.
As long as you also, because if you're
or the dad.
Yeah, or the dad. Accepting help is a really good thing to do. And
very good point.
Keep your tank full.
Yeah.
Because if your tank is empty, it's not going to be fun.
You're a superwoman if you can accept help, not if you don't accept help.
Absolutely. That's a good way of putting it. Definitely. Yeah.
So we really focused a bit on the first week. We said, because there's so much we can talk about, because the first week is just, there's so many changes. But we can do follow up on later. I mean, even breastfeeding is a massive topic that we're definitely going to be tackling this year. We're working on a course even for our mummies, which is really great, thanks to Baby City. So there's so much we can talk about. We just today wanted to tackle a little bit those raw, real things from
things that aren't
just after birth, you know. And thanks for sharing that. Like, you're swelling up down there.
Hello.
It's sore to go to the toilet. Yeah, you're bleeding. Why are we bleeding? You know. Yeah. So Jeanie, thank you for being open and vulnerable.
You're welcome.
So I think our time is running fast. Let's see if there's any questions that has come in. Letabo Dubis, she just said, thank you for the topic, ladies. I had severe postnatal depression and I went through it by myself with little knowledge of what is going on. Thank you for that comment, Letabo. It's so true, there's little knowledge of what's going on, and I'm sorry that you've had to go through that, and I'm sure you're going to be empowering and helping mommies to be aware of that. Postnatal depression is a real thing. I think it's also a topic for another day.
Yeah.
If you don't get out of those initial baby blues, those first days, and you feel you stay in that low, you stay depressed, that is when you need help. That is when it gets into a postnatal depression, which is a real thing, and you can get help for it, and it's important to get help for that. So thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to conclude?
Conclude? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's awesome that we talk about these things. And I think, if someone asks you a question and you've already gone through this, I think it would be awesome if you shared what you went through in a raw and real way.
Yeah.
Because people ask questions for reasons, and I think if we can answer them as best as we can, that'd be awesome.
Yes, and be positive about it, not like shaming it or.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing to be ashamed about.
No, exactly.
It's a miracle, so.
It is a miracle, eh? Sure. And how much is the reward? Let's talk about the reward of it all.
Every time I
the
look
sacrifice,
at him,
but the reward is way.
he's so cute.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is very cliche, but and all moms say this, but I really can't imagine life without him.
Oh.
And he's just a blessing, so.
Oh.
Definitely worth it.
There we go. So thanks for tuning in, and we hope that you've been blessed by the session. Birth and baby advice you can trust, and we'll see you next week again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jeanie.
You're welcome.